Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining tonight. I am Emma, and I'm coming to you live from Seattle, Washington. And it's a sunny day here, and we have an alumni panel, so overall, it's an amazing day. And I actually oversee the alumni community here at EF Gap Year, so I get to hang out with alumni all day, talk to them about what they're doing now, what their program was like. So I'm so excited to be joined by two awesome alum this evening. Also, my cat just jumped on the desk. But yeah, we're going to jump in a little bit. I'm going to go through a couple slides about our programs and give some context of who we are. And then we'll jump into the Q&A. But I did want to just call out that this is a wild time to be a high school senior, to be in high school in general, as college application process just is really, it's the time. It's the time. May 1st is looming, so I know it's a stressful time. And I think it's really helpful to hear from alumni who've been through that, and we're going through that just last year. And I hope that we can support you and help you through whatever decision you make, whether it's going straight to college, taking a gap year, whatever that looks like. And we'll dive into the college and gap process a little bit as well. And just for some context, because I know that we have people here from all different parts of their gap planning process. We offer gap year programs for anyone aged 18 to 22, whether that is between high school and college, whether you're in college, maybe you want to readjust or transfer or thinking about a different path, or even for students who have already graduated college. We see students kind of across that whole range there, and our programs are really designed to help you build those real world skills, kind of make lifelong memories and return home just a better you, kind of ready to take on whatever's next. So let's jump into some context about who we are at EF. So the first question everyone asks is, what does EF stand for? That stands for Education First. Always comes up. Got to get that one out of the way. But EF is really the world leader in educational travel, which is really amazing. We've been going for almost 65 years now, and we've helped millions of people see new places, experience new cultures, learn new languages, and just discover new things about the world and about themselves. Did the math wrong. It's 60 years. Was an English major, not a math major. Anyway, many of you might know us from working with your high school, actually. So maybe you've traveled with EF Tours or EF Explore America, and we're what we like to call globally local. So we are based in over 100, I think about 115 countries all over the world. We work there, we live there, and this gives us just deep expertise and experience running educational travel programs because we are based in those places, and all of this knowledge and expertise has been extremely valuable, especially as kind of the educational landscape has shifted in the past couple of years. So yeah, this worldwide presence just really allows us to understand all the places our customers travel, get to know our customers really well, understand where they might want to go or what they might want to do or what they might want to study, etc., and get them out into the world. So that brings us to EF Gap Year specifically. This is really why we built these programs, because we understand, like a lot of you do as well, that what it takes to be kind of happy and fulfilled and successful in this modern world just looks a lot different now than it did only a handful of years ago. And really more now than ever, we're all coming to understand that real growth and learning can happen anywhere, not just kind of in the four walls of the classroom. So in short, kind of our programs are designed to help students thrive in this ever-changing world, to give them the space, the tools, the experience, and the confidence to take on the world and really get you out of your comfort zone and allow you to discover more about yourself. And really what that means is you get to come home more equipped to take on whatever might be next, whether that is a job, maybe it's more travel, maybe it's college, whatever that looks like. So now let's get into the program specifically and kind of how that's structured and how it all works. All right. So let's start with the different lengths of programs. So these are your options here. We have semester options that last 10 to 16 weeks and give you the chance to kind of travel the globe and learn experientially. And 2 of these semesters actually are first year abroad or study abroad programs. So if you're interested in kind of focusing your semester a little bit more academically, these could be a great option. And these look a lot like a semester at college, except you're traveling the world and getting to explore out your comfort zone. And then we have the gap year option, which Jay will speak about tonight, which is 23 weeks beginning each fall. And that looks like a typical academic year, 2 semesters, a winter break starting in the fall. So we have a bunch of incredible options. Knowing that everyone's needs are unique, our team is really here to work with you and help you figure out kind of what that right fit program is. And of course, we have Brontë here to talk about our semesters and Jay to talk about our gap year. Also, just keep in mind as we go that regardless of which program you enroll on, here's what's included. So all those flights and transportation, activities and excursions, accommodations, support, you're really in our hands once you decide that this is for you, from pre-departure to coming home. Now, diving in a little bit deeper into our semester programs, these are our 10-week programs kind of built around the academic semester. So starting in September and February, early February. And these are perfect for students who might be deferring, graduating early, maybe you were a spring admit to your school, or maybe you just want to take a break kind of before, during, or after college. So with the Changemaker, you will adventure your way through the diverse ecosystems of Latin America while working with kind of local communities to learn about sustainability in action. A really amazing semester, getting your hands dirty, very hands-on, out and about in Latin America. The Voyager is all about embracing your adventurous side as you explore kind of the natural wonders of Australia, learn about the cultures of Thailand and Japan. And then finally, Pathfinder is all about kind of hitting a bunch of European cities and focusing on different themes throughout. So you'll focus on environmental science, history, business, culture. It's an amazing European exploration, and Brontë will speak all about Pathfinder. It's one of our most popular programs at the moment. But as you can see, there's really a variety of incredible semesters and locations that you can go to, designed to kind of fit your goals and destination dreams and more. I saw Joseph ask a question in the chat. This is live, so you can ask questions here, and the alumni will answer as well. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. This is live. I'm here tonight. Excited to have you all here. Awesome. Okay, and then let's talk about first semester abroad programs. So we partner with the world's top universities and colleges, including Penn State, UT Austin, Colorado State University, many, many more, to facilitate just culturally immersive international educational experiences that bring learning to life. So if you want a semester, but you want to focus it a little bit more academically, these are a really great option for you. So during Mosaic of Spain, you'll spend a semester of college living and learning in Spain with EF Study Abroad, and you'll attend classes at our language campus in Malaga. Jay went to Malaga. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then you will experience kind of a curated curriculum from the University of Granada's Center of Modern Languages, exploring Spain's kind of past, present, and future. And then you also go on a bunch of field excursions. So you'll go to Amsterdam, Tangier, Madrid, and you'll get 12 transferable credits. I just visited our students in both Malaga and Granada. I wish I could go on that program. It is just incredible, and those are amazing parts of the world. But then that brings us to our CSU Global Challenge semester. So we actually recently launched this amazing program where you'll travel from Colorado to Costa Rica to Panama and then to Mexico on this Pan-American exploration of identity, expression, and our sustainable future. And this is amazing because you can bring this credit right to CSU with you and apply through us, or you can take those credits and go anywhere else you plan on going. So it's an amazing way to start your college experience, dip your toes into a lot of subjects and see the world. And then finally, we have the 23-week gap year program. So this is what it's all about here. This program is broken into 2 semesters with a winter break in between. And the first semester is all about guided exploration. So you're traveling to 12 cities across 3 continents with a small cohort of students, and you're seeing a bunch of different places, trying a bunch of different things, kind of learning about the themes in each location, really getting to know yourself in the world. And then kind of once you've gotten a grasp on that travel, you'll spend your second semester in one location, really getting to know and culturally immerse yourself in that one place. So you can either study a language or do an internship. And you take all those skills and all that knowledge you learned in that first semester and practice really becoming a local and living independently abroad while learning a language or interning. So this year it's pretty amazing. It really has it all. And it's really a conglomeration of our semester programs. So I'm keeping an eye on time because I want to make sure we get to the alum as soon as possible, but hopefully you're feeling inspired and energized and excited. You can see here how the pricing breaks down. We're not going to dive into it too much right now because I think the star of the show is really our alum, but you can talk to your gap year consultant more about this and talk through payment plans, fundraising, what this can look like for you. So I see some questions in the chat. I am going to get to these as we keep going. I just want to make sure we intro our alum, but these are great questions in the chat. Feel free to keep dropping them there. So Jay and Brontë, do you want to come on back and we can do some intros? Awesome. Okay, welcome back, both of you. So let's start with Jay. Can you just give us a little intro, maybe tell us kind of who you are, where you're coming from tonight, what program you did, and then just what you're up to these days, and then we can dive into the specifics later on.
Sure. Hi everyone. I'm Jay. I was on the gap year last year from 2022 to 2023. Um, it was a little bit different then than it is now, but I pretty much hit all the same locations, just a little bit of a difference in the, times and where you're going. But I spent my language in Malaga, and then I did my service in Costa Rica, and then I had an internship in Dublin. Um, and after my gap year was over, I also decided to travel around a little bit more.
Cool.
Um, so it's pretty much a full year of being all over the globe. So it was fun. And then after I came home, I moved down. I'm from Northern California, and then I moved down to Santa Barbara. I'm currently in school here, and there's also an EF school here, so I meet a lot of like EF students around and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I was an alumni, I guess, while they're doing their studies here now. So yeah.
That's amazing. Wow, full circle moment. Okay, awesome. We're going to dive into all of that in just a little bit. Brontë, how about you? Tell us a little bit about, yeah, who you are, program you did, and kind of what you're up to now / where you're coming from tonight.
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Brontë. I went on the Pathfinder gap semester this past fall, so I just got back in December. I absolutely loved it. I went to all the locations you can see on the screen: Iceland, London, France, Germany, Switzerland, and Italy. I'm currently a student at Boston University, but I'm on spring break right now, so I am home, as you can see. I'm in Massachusetts right now, and I'm looking forward to exploring everything we have on the table for tonight.
Awesome. Okay, cool. We're spanning the US, which is awesome. We got West Coast, East Coast. This is great. I'm seeing some great questions in the chat. I am quickly going to stop sharing my screen so we can see each other. And that's important. So, because I want to see you both. And let's take it back. First of all, I think it's helpful to know that let's go kind of chronologically. Let's go back to kind of your decision making. Think about where you were, I guess, this time last year. Then we'll talk a little bit about the on-program experience, and then we'll move to kind of how you've been impacted, what you've been up to since. So zooming back, I guess, a year ago today, not a year ago today, but about a year ago, starting with you, Jay, what was kind of on your mind? Like, were you thinking of taking a gap year all along? Was it kind of a last minute decision? What did that look like for you when you were thinking through college planning?
So college was, or I was a senior at that time, and I was starting to get back a lot of my like admissions and things like that. And I mostly applied to in-state schools in California. And 2022 was, we are kind of coming out of the pandemic, still a lot of unknowns, and admissions were really tough that year. A lot of, especially in California, like a lot of places, the admission rates were super low and the acceptance rates were really low too. So I was originally, the gap year was kind of like a last minute, I guess not last minute, but it was a last minute kind of decision for me. I had intended fully on graduating, going to college, and a gap year was just never really on my mind. Um, but after the admissions and talking to my parents, just decided to pull the trigger. So like, just decided to do this instead. And it was definitely, it helped me out tremendously. Um, I was initially kind of going into school undeclared, didn't really know what I wanted to do, wasn't really honestly wasn't really sure if I actually wanted to go to college. And after my gap year, I had a lot of I guess time like maturing, growing into myself, thinking about what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go to school, and things like that. And I decided or I landed on the option of being here in Santa Barbara. I actually go to SBCC, which is the community college, but I have plans on transferring to UCSB in about the next year. So, and yeah, I'm an econ major now, which is something that before the gap year, I never really thought I would be interested in, but
Mm.
definitely because of the gap year, I feel like I've definitely like found my passions and found my direction in life. So,
Yeah. Whoa, there
yeah.
are so many pieces I can't wait to dig into on that. That is amazing. And it's interesting because a lot of students are in that same boat of they have plans to go straight to college. Maybe they don't get into the schools they want to, or kind of like in this last moment before decisions, they're like, wait, maybe there's another option. And I think more and more students are maybe on the other side starting to be like, what if I added a gap year to my college planning already? So it's cool to see both sides because regardless of when you decide, I think students come out of it being like, that was the right decision and that was really meaningful for me. But yeah, Bronte, throwing it over to you because I know your experience was a little bit different. What did this look like for you as you were applying to colleges and thinking through a gap semester, gap year?
Yeah, so I had a similar sort of circumstance in the way that my gap semester wasn't actually really planned ahead of time. When I had looked back through all of my college admissions from that past year, I was looking through and I was accepted to Boston University with this contingency that I would have a gap semester in the fall. So I would start in the spring semester in January, and I would have a gap semester built into my program in the fall. And
Mhm.
so I was kind of searching for something with more direction that I could do during that period of time. I wasn't sure if I wanted to work or what I wanted to do with that time, but I've always loved traveling. And I was looking for something that had that sort of academic element, but also a traveling component that would seem to benefit me when I actually got to school in January. So, in looking for that, I found EF, and it was the absolute perfect opportunity because it had everything I wanted. I could get a credit to transfer through SNHU to Boston University once I started in January, and I also had all of the guided exploration that I could ever ask for. So I could not be happier with my choice to go in the gap semester with EF, and I loved it so much.
Whoa, Bronte, you are just say you that's like heaven into my ears, you saying that. Amazing. Okay, so that's interesting. So you were kind of asked by your university, you can come to Boston University if you take this fall semester off.
Right.
When you saw that, were you kind of like, did you think of it as like ooh, that's a bummer, or were you like, wait, this is an interesting opportunity? Like, what were your feelings when you heard back about that?
Yeah, at first I was so freaked out. It immediately came with nerves and feelings of like almost being left out because I knew all my friends were going to go off to college and I'd be alone in my hometown if I stayed and didn't go to college like everybody else was. So I was just struck with anxiety and fear regarding what would happen if I ended up like going with that decision. But
Yeah.
finding like the EF program, it just gave me such a feeling of purpose, and like it was an opportunity that I was able to make into something positive that at first was so overwhelming and scary. So I was so excited to find the gap semester program, and it came at the perfect time.
That's awesome. Looking back now, do you feel like it was what you needed and the right decision?
It was such a blessing in disguise. I had no idea because I also had dreamed of traveling my whole entire life. I've always wanted to travel. And so having that opportunity come right before college, so in a way that it even provided me with more independence and confidence before I even got to school, I feel like it honestly gave me like such a head start before all my peers that I had this sense of confidence and this sense of independence that I almost could have never imagined that I would have had going into school. So I feel like it really benefited me in so many ways I never had even imagined.
That's awesome. That is so great to hear. Okay, so I guess throwing it back to Jay, when you did ultimately decide, I am going to take a gap year, um, what were you kind of looking for? Like, what were your goals when you found the gap year option? Kind of what were your goals looking into a gap year, and then what were you trying to get out of it, I guess is my question.
Yeah, so my gap year, I initially went into it because I didn't feel like I was fully ready for like the full college experience. Like moving out and a lot of the responsibilities that came with that. I wasn't really sure if I was like fully ready to be fully moved out independent. And a lot of it was also just learning like how to navigate the world and stuff, and like being as like an independent person, a young adult, just kind of thrown out into the world. I was feeling, especially kind of when graduation was starting to come up, and I was feeling a little bit nervous to like I didn't want to stay home, but I also really wanted to go out, be independent. And it was actually my parents that um told me about EF and like the opportunity, and they were saying, I think this will be awesome for you because admissions this year, they were not good. Like I didn't get into any of my first schools. And at first I was a little bit hesitant, and I just decided that this is what would be best. And eventually that's pretty much exactly what I got out of it, is I got a lot of like a very like my maturity developed. I felt, more responsible like for myself. And just going from that into a college experience and being, a young adult, living pretty much by himself, and then having their own responsibilities and, being punctual, time management, those skills I really honed and developed during the gap year. So that
Yeah,
was basically the big part that I got out of it, and kind of what I was looking for going into it as well.
yeah, that's so great. I think it is sort of wild that we expect students to know what they want to do or to feel mature or to know how to, I don't know, how to be an adult without fully learning it up until 18. And
Mhm.
I think one way to do that is to jump into the world feet first, head first. What's the saying? Just dive right into the world and explore, but with the support system. And that's really cool that your parents brought it to you. That's actually a question I had, and maybe throwing it over to you, Bronte, like, what did your parents think about this? Were they totally on board? Was it something you had to convince them of? What was that like?
There was definitely a convincing element that took place. I think initially both my parents were just concerned about safety aspects and all the things that, parents are supposed to. Is this legit? Are we going to get scammed? Like, what's actually going on here? So I
Mhm.
think once we had the first couple phone calls with the gap year consultant, I think both my parents really started to come around. And I think especially once I got on program, they were so impressed with EF's ability to handle safety management, all that kinds of stuff. So I think it's definitely comforting to know that, for example, on my program, in front of like before we went to every single country, we had a group meeting where we discussed emergency phone numbers, cultural norms, and everything that we should know before going to every single country. So along the program and beforehand, there's just safety measures taken all around. Like you can always contact the adults that are supervising you on the program. And I think it's definitely something that seems really scary at first when it becomes this abstract concept of, ooh, taking a gap year, taking a gap semester. But I feel
Mhm.
like once things start to become more real and you really look into what EF is doing to make sure all of their students are safe and taken care of, it becomes much more comforting.
Yeah, that I think is a lot of the, how a lot of parents feel. I think their first question is, how are we going to be sure you can be safe when you're traveling around the world, which is completely understandable. And I'm so glad that you could speak a little bit to safety and support because I think that that's such a emphasis of these programs, is feeling like you have enough independent to explore and learn about yourself and grow, but always having kind of this safety net of people and tour directors and student life coordinators and advisors and all these people that are kind of there to support you when things go awry, which happens sometimes when you're traveling and maybe get sick or whatever that looks like. Okay, I know there's a couple of questions in the chat. I want to get to those in just a minute as we kind of dive into on-program experience. But let's, moving forward a little bit, you arrive on program. How are you feeling, Jay? Like, I know your orientation was in Boston. Was that really nerve-wracking? Like, were you very nervous? Were you excited? How were you feeling kind of first day of your gap year?
Honestly, it felt kind of like unreal because this whole like I had been working all summer and decided kind of like at the end of my senior year, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this big thing. And then suddenly I was there and I was like, it felt kind of like unreal at first.
Yeah.
And then I started the anxiety did start to hit, but I feel like even more than that, I was just super excited to really like start on this journey and knowing that, regardless, like it was just gonna be like, the adventure of my lifetime. So I was really excited. Um, but also I was really tired because I had a red-eye flight and didn't sleep at all the way to
Yeah.
Boston. So I was just exhausted at the same time, but I was also super excited. And when everyone started pouring into the meeting room for orientation and things like that, and going around and meeting everybody, it was a really awesome experience and definitely eased a lot of anxiety that I had about traveling and everything like that. So yeah.
Yeah. I've heard from a lot of students that they feel like there's just a similarity or like a like-mindedness of students who take
Mhm.
a gap. Like, did you feel that when you got there, you started talking to people, you were like, oh, wait, like we are on the same wavelength?
Absolutely. Yeah, it broke down a lot of like, I guess, boundaries or any like tension, like, of we're all here and we're all really excited and we all share this huge similarity and we're all, you know, very excited to go on this adventure and, just kind of, I guess, catalyze like everybody just like meeting each other and going around introducing yourself, finding out like which, who's going to the same place as you are.
Mhm.
And then eventually like those people that you meet in the orientation room are like, I'm still best friends with a lot of them. So
Yeah,
it was a great experience. Yeah.
that's awesome. We should touch on friendships more as well, but throwing it over to you, Bronte. Yeah, how are you feeling kind of coming into meeting everyone for the first time? It's just like nerve-wracking, it's scary, but it's exciting. How was that first kind of day feeling?
The absolute scariest part for me was like the first 10 minutes. I was in my hotel room after I had gotten to the hotel and I was just sitting there staring at the window. I was on like the 12th floor of this like incredible business hotel that EF was hosting us at in Boston. And I was like, what is going on? How did I get here? This makes absolutely no sense. I cannot believe this is actually happening. And after that, I went downstairs into the lobby, and there were a few EF people that I met for the first time, girls going on my trip, and we started talking, and we talked for 2 hours in the lobby. And from there, it was just like, it just everything clicked. Like, it really, I cannot speak enough to the similarity that like everyone shares. It takes such a specific type of person to be able to go on a trip like this. And I think everyone was so open to making friendships with everybody else and so friendly. I feel like people share a sense of open-mindedness that honestly just inspires a deeper connection in a way that is hard to find in friendships that are just like at school now for me, because you share this bond and you create this sense of community that is almost unable to be replicated like through anything else, because travel, it's intense. You're spending 24 hours a day with these people. I mean, it's something special. But I think definitely like within the first couple of days, all of the anxiety and nerves that I had they were vanquished.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing to hear. I feel similarly from my study abroad experiences across high school and college. The friendships I made then when we were all thrown into the world and experiencing so many new things together are it's just a different bond than I think other experiences, even going to college or going to high school, whatever that looks like. And it's also cool because you can kind of rewrite yourself when you go into an experience like this. Like you can be anyone that you want to be. You can you just get to, I think, rewrite yourself and start anew and meet everyone from the beginning. And it's a really, really cool experience in that way. So I'd love to hear that. Yeah, can we elaborate on friendships a little bit more? I mean, I know we're touching on it, but I think that's one of people's biggest nerves is like, what if I don't make friends? Or what is that going to be like? Like, do you still talk to a lot of your friends, Jay? I know you just said that you're still best friends with a bunch of people, but what were your friendships like on program and how have they kind of lasted coming home?
Yeah, so that was probably one of my biggest fears and what was giving me the most anxiety is like, oh, well, what if I don't make any friends? But it was weird, and I know Bronte kind of like touched on this a little bit, but there's like this like just you can almost like feel it in the room of just this shared like desire for new experiences, and that is just it's such a connecting force between all of us, and that really it just kind of and then it like making friends, it was like just it was super easy because like
Yeah.
everybody was there and just excited to meet everybody and have all these new experiences, and like all the anxiety that I had about meeting people and making friends and things like that all just kind of went like vanquished immediately. So it
Yeah.
was a really great thing for that to happen. So yeah.
And are you still in touch with a bunch of them today and still get to see them sometimes?
Yeah, we're still active in our big EF gap year group chat too. So
That's
yeah, but
sweet.
it's fun. We will like run into each other and stuff. Some of us are going to school in the same area. I still talk to a lot of the people that I was on my gap year with, and yeah, so those friendships still have like stayed really strong. So
Yeah, that's awesome. How about you, Bronte? I mean, you came back much more recently, but have you been able to see anyone or feel like you can stay in touch with them even though they're across the world?
I still talk to probably 5 or 10 people on a weekly basis for my trip. I have plans to go see one of my friends in Washington in May, and one of my other friends is coming to visit me when I'm studying abroad in London this summer. So it's also something that is so special, I feel like, to create friendships this way because we all know that we're such good travel buddies and we love to travel together. So being people that like to travel as we continue to, if we want to travel with people, we have these connections now that we've made that we know we can rely on those people and
Yeah,
reach out to them and see what they're up to if we want to go travel and we're looking to do that. So I think that's also something that's like so special.
so true. And it's cool because the alumni network, even beyond your program, like having both of you on this panel, you're two different programs, different types of people, but like there's already similarities between you two and your experience. And I feel like EF Gap Year alumni can really become friends with each other pretty quickly. And it also gives you this network and connections across the US for years to come, which is really amazing. Okay, I'm keeping an eye on time. I want to keep moving through. A couple questions came in the chat. Actually, a lot of them. So let me go through and read these. A bunch of questions about college credit, which I want to touch on in just a second. But coming back to kind of friends, cohort sizes, what did the cohort size look like for you two? Like, how many people were you traveling with at a time? Maybe if we want to start with Bronte and then we can throw it over to Jay. This person asks, talk a little bit about the size of the cohort they were with and the age ranges.
Yeah, so for my cohort, I know Pathfinder is one of the biggest programs, one of the most popular for EF. My program was 33 people, which I think is pretty big as far as like the cohorts go. But I still honestly, I feel like I talked to every single person I was on program with. I made friends with almost every single person, did something with everyone. Like there really is that sense of like community and open-mindedness. Um, and as far as like I feel like group activities, we mostly were all together. There were some things where like if we were touring a museum, we might have to split into like one or two groups. But other than that, I feel like 33 was honestly a really good amount of people where there were people that I got kind of close with, and then I could still hang out with other people and get to know them. But you still have this sense of like a tight-knit community that you're
Mhm.
traveling with, and you kind of get a sense of everybody. So I feel like it was honestly a really good size, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, for you, Jay, I know gap year is a little bigger in general, but was it kind of similar sizing? Obviously, you broke off into your modules and stuff, but similar sizing, or what did your cohort look like?
So for the entire gap year, there were a lot of people. I think there was like between 120, 140 people like in total. But we were all broken up into four different right? I think it was, yeah, four or five. No, it was four, like four different cohorts. Mine was about, and they were each about, I think like 20 to 30 people. Mine had about like 25 in it. Um, but each time it would always like break up a little bit too. So I was always in different size cohorts sometimes for one section of the trip or one module. We would all be together, all 120 of us, and then we would break off into our service module groups. So it would be like 25. And then like during service, we would break off again. So there was like 9 or 10 people.
Gotcha.
And then other parts. So it was very, I guess, the sizes changed a lot, which is it can be good or bad, um, just depending on like, transportation and traveling. But it was also good because it was like I'm getting to know more people and I'm getting to meet more people. And the parts where we're all together and then I meet people and then we're separated. And then 6 months later, we're all back to get together again. And then it's like,
Yeah.
yo, like I haven't seen you in so long. And then it's interesting because, there's still that connection. So, you get to share, all of your travel stories and then hear all of their travel stories. So it's really interesting, um, I guess for the cohorts and the sizes. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great explanation from both. I think across the board, we try to stick to 25 to 30 or so people in a cohort because just like Bronte mentioned, it's a good size it's big enough you can get to know a lot of people, but still kind of make your close friends, and it's not too small that you feel like you get to know them in a week. But then for especially our year students, you're kind of traveling to different locations and doing different activities. And with that, you might get broken up into smaller groups as well. Maybe you'll come together as the bigger cohort. But across the board, we try to keep it around 30 students. So you feel like you kind of have that crew to be with. And then as for ages, I'll just touch on this as well so we can keep moving through some other questions as well. But we really do see students that are kind of those post-high school gap year students, but we're seeing more and more kind of middle of college students who are maybe transferring from a local community college or just want to readjust and transfer to a new school. Maybe they aren't sure about their direction in college. So I think there's also like a decent amount of the 19 to 20 range who are maybe rethinking their college decision. And then we're getting more of those post-college graduates as well. That's probably a little bit less on the programs, but a lot of students will come and do an internship with us after their college graduation and get some real world skills as well. So really across the board, but I would say 18 to 20 is kind of our biggest chunk of students. And okay, these are great questions, everyone. Okay, Bronte, so you took college credit. Do you want to speak to that a little bit and then talk about transferring those credits in? Because Jay took a gap year without college credit. So I guess one thing to know is you can opt into college credit or you choose to not take college credit. Totally up to you. And then our study abroad programs are the more kind of academic classroom setting ones. But yeah, Bronte, what was taking college credit like for the Pathfinder experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I took the gap semester program offers a like dual enrollment sort of almost course with Southern New Hampshire University. So when you sign up to go in the gap semester, there's an option through email where you can sign up for the college course, and that's totally online. So it's honestly just like taking any other like online college course where you have assignments and they're essentially all due by the end of a certain due date. There's no like chronological due dates that go by a certain time. It's all due at the end, so you can complete it at your own pace. And I tended to, if we had like free days on the program, I would catch up on assignments or like work on that. They are super focused on the experiential learning aspect. So I had assignments about currency exchange or foreign markets, things like that nature, where I honestly feel like it helped me to better absorb what I was experiencing on my gap program because the assignments are so tailored to the gap semester experience and what it's like to actually be traveling in that respect. So I honestly loved it. Um, there was about a 2-week grace period after I returned from traveling where I could submit all my assignments. And then I was able to transfer that to Boston University as a global studies credit. So that is counting towards my degree, which is awesome to, receive some credit for that time while I was gone.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like it's sort of 50-50. Some students take college credit and love it and really want to transfer that in, and some are like, I don't want to do any assignments. This is for me and me only. And I did want to mention as well that for our study abroad program, so that's Mosaic of Spain and the Global Challenge semester, those credits are a little more classroom based, as I mentioned. And then also, I think someone asked about kind of feeder universities. So the CSU program is a program through EF, but you can apply to CSU and go directly there, but you don't have to. So you can feed directly right into CSU. You will likely go with other CSU students, but you don't have to go to CSU. Whereas Mosaic of Spain isn't partnered with a university in the same way. So you can bring those credits no matter where you're going. Okay. Zooming out of college credits to keep moving forward, and we can also, if I don't answer any questions in the chat, I will be sure to connect you with either Brontë, Jay, another alumni, or our gap year consultants to answer more about, tutors, study groups, etc. But any highlights come to mind? Like, is there a moment on your gap semester and gap year that you're like, this is a moment that kind of explains my whole gap, or just a highlight or a place you loved? Maybe throwing it over to you, Jay, first. Can you think of, that's always a hard question, but what kind of comes to mind when you think of your gap year?
Yeah, this is probably the hardest question I get, but I think it's one of the places, or one of my like modules I remember the most, or that I have the most memories from, is the language module in Malaga. I was with a pretty small group there, really like the first, because that was, I wasn't living out of a suitcase in a hostel, and I was actually got the chance to really settle down and really like get to know a place more like a local rather than a tourist. Um, and that for me was like kind of a big defining moment in my gap year experience. Um, because the cultural immersion in Europe, it was really fun and I had a great time, but that was the first really like truly being abroad and um experiencing the world in, a different way, that in something that I'm not quite used to. So that
Mhm.
moment was a really big one for me. But also another one was when we first landed in Heathrow in London, and we were all kind of getting with our cohorts and stuff, and after going through customs and everything like that, and we all like kind of settled down, just kind of in the arrival area of the airport, and just kind of looked around at each other and realized like, "Oh, we're here, like it's happening right now." And that was kind of a big defining moment for all of us, of, we're this was really happening. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That is I can feel that moment for my own semesters when you arrive and you're like, whoa, this is real. This is happening. This is a start to everything. That's a cool moment. Yeah, how about you, Bronte? Is there any, defining moments that come to mind from your Pathfinder experience?
I mean, again, such a hard question. There are so many moments, especially when Pathfinder, we went to so many incredible places. But I mean, even just in like the first couple weeks, Iceland was it was the location I was looking forward to the most, and it absolutely lived up to expectations. It was incredible. And I mean, there was one specific day where this is maybe like a week and a half into us all being together. So we've been in Iceland for like maybe a week. And that morning, EF had like planned us excursions pretty much all day. So we started off by whale watching in the morning. We saw whales like cresting through this like Arctic Ocean. It was the most insane thing I've ever experienced. Then we all went to eat at this little tiny restaurant. By the way, we're whale watching in this like rural town in Iceland, like this tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. And we're all going to eat at this restaurant. And there are two pianos in the restaurant. And as we're eating, we find out that two members of the program are actually incredible piano players. And they both go over to the piano and start playing a duet of Someone Like You by Adele. And we all just start singing. And we're eating fish and chips in this tiny restaurant in the middle of nowhere, Iceland, after we just saw whales. And they're playing this song on the piano and everyone is singing together. It was the most surreal moment where everyone, it just felt like we were a family and it was just, it felt like out of a movie. It was ridiculous. And then the rest of the day, we went to this fish factory, which doesn't sound that exciting, but the directors of the experience, it was like this grandfather and grandson duo, and they should be doing stand-up comedy. I mean, they made it so engaging and hilarious. It was absurd. And we ended the day by going back to the hotel. And outside of the hotel, it's common in Iceland to have these like these parachute trampoline like things. I don't even know how to explain it, but they come out of the ground and it's like this massive balloon you can jump on. And we met these little Icelandic children that were teaching us Icelandic, and I got thrown around on this balloon thing. They were bouncing me off into the air. It was ridiculous. But the entire day, that's just like a picture of what one day can look like on an EF experience. You go through all these things that individually seem ridiculous. And then as a whole, to experience that for 3 months is just, it's really out of a movie. I just feel so lucky that I got to experience something like that. But that is one day that was really, really awesome.
That is amazing. I love it. Yeah, you don't get to spend every day seeing whales and then, playing piano with your friends and singing and then meeting local Icelandic children, and that is a legendary day. That is
Yeah.
amazing. Um, okay, this has all been so amazing. I'm keeping an eye on the time again. Let's kind of shift from on program to post program, coming home. This is a big question too, but how do you feel like your gap experience has impacted you? Obviously, Bronte, you've been home. You came home pretty recently, but you're in college now. You've started up, and Jay, you've been in the world for a year now, and you touched on this at the beginning, but how has your gap impacted you? Kind of what are your biggest takeaways? And maybe we'll start with Bronte and then we can move to Jay.
So I think definitely I went into the gap being someone who's like quite independent and I knew this was something that I wanted to do. Um, but you really cannot overstate the interpersonal skills, the level of confidence, the just sense of self-efficacy that you gain from something like this because you're just always going to be in situations where you have to learn how to communicate with people who might not speak your language or learn how to navigate if you're late to something or you get lost and you're with friends. Like, it's really such a character building experience. I feel like, honestly, I can talk to a brick wall now. I feel so confident moving into spaces where I don't know people that I feel like would have really scared me before. And I think, especially being in a college setting now, I've had such an easier time of making friends. And even coming in, having taken a gap semester and coming into school like late as far as traditional like standards would be, I feel like I've made such close friends and I've just become a part of the community at my school, even though I didn't come from like a traditional timeline as far as like my college experience.
Yeah. That's amazing. I'd love to hear that. And yeah, Jay, you mentioned, now you're studying econ. That's not really what you expected. You're in Santa Barbara. Can you dig in a little bit more there? Like, what was coming home like, and how has this kind of impacted and kind of directed your future?
Yeah. So, I think for my gap year, actually one of the biggest takeaways I had is I caught the travel bug big time. I ended up canceling my flight home and I just stayed in Europe for another 5 weeks, just like traveling around. But after I came home, um, at that point, I didn't really, because I wanted to go to school in state, but because of my gap year, like applying to in-state schools while I was abroad, it was really complicated and I ended up not doing it, or I only did some of them. Um, and so I decided, after talking to my dad and to some other friends, I learned about Santa Barbara City College, which I could apply to, and then I could get onto a program to be able to transfer to UC Santa Barbara or pretty much to any schools. Like they have a really good track to be able to get to into the UC system, into the CSU system, into some of the private schools too. So that's what I decided to do. And so now I'm living here in Santa Barbara, completely on my own, autonomously. And I did mention, yeah, I'm an econ major. I actually have an exam tomorrow, so I've been studying for that too. But anyways, so yeah, but I feel like the gap year definitely helped with a lot of like skills that you develop while you're traveling, like punctuality, being on time, time management, and a lot of things like that, making sure that things are accounted for that carry over into living like the college life. And I feel like I definitely coming into the school year and coming into college, I felt like I had definitely developed a better sense of maturity and I guess self-awareness that has really impacted my college life, which I would not have been able to develop without the gap year. And EF programs that helped tremendously with that and developing a lot of really good social skills and even like things like communication and a lot of
Yeah.
interpersonal relationships too.
It's amazing. It's so great to hear. And also, yeah, shout out to Jay who has an exam tomorrow. And I asked him to be on this alumni panel, and he was like, yeah, I'm there. So can't thank you both enough. With the last couple minutes we have, um, let's see where to begin. Someone did ask about finances, which I think is always a question that comes up. Like, did you have a budgeting system? What did that look like when you were on program? Because obviously, when you're traveling, like it can be expensive. You need to plan accordingly. But what did that look like for your own kind of once you got on program, you're maybe going out to dinner or something like that? What did your budgeting look like? If either of you have thoughts on that, if not, no worries. But anyone want to jump in on that specifically?
Um, I think the biggest thing is it also depends on your financial situation, but the way I did it is I had a credit card that didn't have any international conversion fees or like currency conversion fees. Um that way I could, be able to spend money without having to, rack up any crazy fines or anything like that. And I had saved up a lot of money from working over the summer and just working during school, things like that. And pretty much every month I would pay off a significant portion of that. But a lot of it, you kind of have to budget more than you think because there's things like weekend trips, souvenirs, things like that, shopping, any, you know, like medication and things like that, that, you kind of do have to have, I guess, a pool of, some money to, in case you overspend on something or if if you're in a country that's more expensive than living in the US would be or something like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
what I had to experience.
I
So
definitely agree with that. And I think it's a great first experience in budgeting and learning how to manage money in that way because it's such a controlled environment, but also there are extraneous expenses like if you want to go out to eat or shopping, things like that. Or if you want to go on, like for me, when I was in Italy, me and my friends did a day trip to Venice. So we had to figure out how to buy train tickets, and that was like another expense to worry about. So I think definitely go with the intention of having some money that you have to spend. I know for me, like I saved up all summer to have like that kind of fund so I could spend money on things that I wanted to because also you're gonna want to shop and you're gonna want to buy things while you're away because it's an incredible experience that and you're gonna want things to remind you of it. So I think definitely just keep it in mind, but it wasn't anything crazy as far as I experienced.
Yeah. That's such great insight from both of you. And Jay, beginning with it depends on your financial situation is like so real. And I do just want to mention that we have a budgeting system that we share with our students before program that we kind of update each year because things change. And our gap year consultants can share that with you and can talk through all of this with you. So this definitely doesn't have to be you doing it by yourself. We can help you through that as well. But last question for you both. With these families that are on the call, they're thinking about whether this is right for them. Do you have any advice or tips for students who are thinking about taking a gap and kind of in your shoes this time last year? Um, Either one of you feel free to jump in. I know, or think about it for a little if you want, but some advice and tips for families going through this process right now.
Um, Honestly, like the biggest piece of advice that I could give is just go for it. Um, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do it in the first place. And honestly, I kind of had some anxiety, like I was going to be so far from family, and what if something happens and I'm in another country and I can't be there? Um, but it's a lot of anxiety just thinking about a gap year and just like, well, what comes after? And what if it doesn't work out? But um, honestly, like I'm not really a big risk taker. This is probably the biggest risk I've ever taken, and it was so tremendously worth it. And I can't recommend the program enough. It was truly like not even life changing. It was almost like life defining, if that makes sense. Like it really like kind of is a big, you know, either, I found myself or it's a big, definition of who I am and how I present myself in the world. So I would just say just go for it. Like, you know, so yeah.
Jay, that's gonna make me cry. I'm over here feeling emotional thinking about this experience. Okay, that was amazing. How about you, Bronte? Any tips or advice for students kind of in this position right now?
I would say if you are a prospective parent and you're thinking about, or a person thinking about going on this trip, don't go if you don't want to catch the travel bug because, as Jay said, it is real and this trip will make you want to continue to travel for the rest of your life. Like, I already have a trip planned to South America. I'm studying abroad, like in the next year. I, it's just, it's so contagious and getting to dip your toe into what it feels like to be a global citizen and expand your cultural awareness, expand your communication abilities, expand your international connections. I have friends in France and Germany now that I get to talk to, and if I want to go stay there, I can go visit them and stay with them. Like, it truly just builds your life and your vision for what life can be and what your world can look like in a way that you just can't even imagine. Like, allow yourself to be surprised, keep an open mind, and I completely agree. I cannot recommend this trip or working with EF in any way enough. Like, it really it changed the way that I think about the world, the way that I think about myself. Like, it really is. It's just truly such a special experience. It almost cannot be defined in words.
I love it. Also, Joseph in the chat, Bronte and Jay for future presidents or senators. That's amazing. That's an amazing place to end. Mic drop. I feel like we could talk for another hour or more. Like I feel like we barely went under the surface of how much there is to talk about, but I can't thank you both enough. We're at time here and I don't want to keep you for any longer. Jay has an exam to study for. Bronte has spring break to enjoy. Um, but for
Wait,
all
could I
those
just like
people,
add on to Bronte's point really
oh my
quick?
God,
There's something that I just had to say. So, um,
please.
I think you said something about like embracing the unknown and or something along those lines. That was such an important, like if you are pretty committed on going onto this gap year, that is such an important trait to have is just like embracing the unknown and not knowing exactly what's going to happen, but just going for it anyways that's a really important mindset to have and keeping an open mind too is you're going to change you are going to change so much about you're going to learn a lot about yourself you're going to um like you as a person are going to develop and change so much and just keeping an open mind and embracing that is just a really important thing to have so yeah
Yeah,
I just wanted
such a
to add
good
that really
call.
quick so
Yeah, I think I guess just to follow up on that adaptability, a lot of students come home and they're like, I can do anything now because I could adapt to anything. Things came up, I changed, my friends changed, all these things. I think that's so real. And being able to like embrace that as opposed to push that away is so meaningful. So that was incredible. Yeah, thank you both again for joining, for spending an hour with us. To all those who are asking for a recording, we'll definitely follow up and send the recording out for sure. And you can watch this again. And then if you want to get connected with Jay or Bronte or other alumni, we can definitely do that as well if they're willing to chat too, which I feel like they both are, but hopefully they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
definitely yeah.
And great. Well, I will let you two go. Thank you again. I cannot thank you enough. It's just been such a lovely hour and you are both the best. And I am just having a great time. I'm on cloud nine. I feel like I'm going to have a great evening because this is the way it started. So thank you all for coming. See you all soon and have a wonderful evening. All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.